You're live on. Okay, now good. Sorry, we weren't live on both. Hey guys, welcome to Dairies Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner Dean. We are at JL63 today. For those of you playing the game along at home that like to pull up the supply lists and see kind of the different things we're talking about, actually have the name of whatever it is right in front of you. You'd find that on the search box on the jerrysartorama.com website. Type in JL63 and that will pull up all that stuff for you. Show notes, some of the things that aren't listed, I believe, on the teacher's cart are the products that are used for the after party. I've got those on our show notes. For those of you that are in the Jerry's Live group, the private group on Facebook, are we pulling that off? Okay.
We're gonna try it.
Sorry, we're fiddling with microphone different configurations for YouTube. We know there were some issues last week with it not being quite loud enough, and it was kind of scritchy, scratchy. Some people it was fine on cell phones. Some people it was great on a laptop. It was kind of all over the place. So I know on my laptop it didn't sound the greatest. So we're trying something new. So bear with us while we're kind of getting this platform figured out. The after party notes have the products that were used for the after party. Those will be put in the Jerry's Live Facebook group after kind of we're done here, and when YouTube uploads that goes up right after the show, correct?
It should be live
The
right
after
now.
party. Okay, well, they can watch it after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's got all the products that were used in each of those drawings. And you really want to watch the after party this week that's on YouTube, on our Jerry's Artorama channel, because I do 5 different drawings or 4 drawings in a watercolor, correct? They're all of animals. It's sped up, but I'm actually telling you what I'm doing kind of as I'm formulating a drawing, how I'm kind of determining what step to do where. If I'm working in color, kind of when I decide to bring that in. And then the last one is a watercolor of Tina Vanderbrook's cow, Amber Rose. That's one of our viewers that sent me this adorable little cow picture, and that is the last one that's on there. I bring the face up to a nice finished quality show of the watercolor, and then Will's got a nice picture on there for us. So the voiceover explains what I'm doing with all this, so it kind of helps you follow along to if you're new at animal art or just kind of always curious what somebody else's process is, that's on there. With both of these platforms, with YouTube and with Facebook, you can leave questions during the live broadcast for me. We've got Frida on Facebook Live. We've got Amanda on YouTube. Both of them help moderate that. They can answer your questions. And then they can ask me questions that maybe they can't answer. And you can leave questions, and I'll go back after the fact, a couple weeks after, and usually go through everybody's questions. So I'll be doing that for YouTube as well. So that's how it works. If you ever have a question and it's something that can't wait, you could always private message me at my artist Facebook page, Amy Gardner Dean. Not my private one, but at my artist page, and I will help answer your question if it's a particular item or something that we talked about during the show and you kind of need to know. I'm happy to help answer those questions for you guys. Okay, so we posted winners. If you missed the live broadcast this last week, we did speak about the winners on the Jerry's Facebook page. We posted the list of did everybody get back to you, Katie?
I'm still missing a few people.
Okay, so we're still missing a few people. You might have won and you didn't know. On the Jerry's Artorama Facebook page, if you scroll down, there's just a very quick little video with the 10 winners that we picked from last week for the water-soluble graphite show. If you made a comment on there, live or within, I guess, 24 hours on either YouTube or on Facebook, you were entered. So you might win and you have won and you might not know. So far, we're still missing a couple people. So you might want to check that out after this show. So I think we'll just go ahead and get started because we've got a lot of stuff to cover, and I think that's all I needed to talk about at the beginning. So, so this is about fur and feathers, basically creating realistic animal shapes, fur, feathers, textures in art. More of that's answered in the after party as far as you're really seeing a demo with kind of the how-to. We're going to talk about some of the products that we sell to help with that. I'm also going to give you what I feel like are my most important tips and tricks. When people hear that, they think I'm going to show them something. The most important tips and tricks, I think, especially with animal art, and I've literally been doing animal art my entire life. My mom has, and if I can find them, I will put up pictures in the Jerry's Live group on Facebook of some of my first animal artwork. I know that she gave me some recently from like when I was 2 and 3 years old, but I couldn't find them last night. So I need to find what file folder I put them in, but I will put some of that stuff up. Ever since then, I've been doing animal art. I've always been fascinated with animals. I love animals. Every animal I meet, I would kind of like to take home, right, guys? I guess kind of, yeah, they know. But it goes beyond just a love for animals. I'm really interested in structure, in form, and how animals move, and even the biology and the genetics that go into them. So I probably have studied them a little bit more than most average animal artists have. But when I say important tips and tricks, these really can be applied to a lot of other types of art. It's just kind of taking that verbiage about the animals and applying it to portraits, or applying it to, landscapes, or this or that. So these tips are going to help any artist, I think, in kind of whatever area of interest they've got. My biggest thing when I talk to people is study other artists. Find artists that you really like, that you really admire, whether it's through history, whether it's somebody that's contemporary. Study what they are doing, study how they learned it. Kind of go back, if you can, at their chronological works and look at kind of how they have evolved, because it helps you see that people just don't know how to do something already, that it's always a learning process. They're always adding to that as they go along. Study line style, study color. If you're into drawing, you're going to be doing more things like that. You really need to study line style. You need to work on practicing line style. Color, study color theory, study color mixing, study how colors play with each other, kind of what the psychological benefit of using certain colors are together, because that helps you in your work. Really dogmatically pursue the techniques that you need to learn. This means, rather than, oh my gosh, that just sounds so hard. Okay, yeah, but that's how you learn to do it. If it helps, narrow your mediums down, work in the same medium, and try to duplicate those techniques until you're successful, and then see what those can be applied to in a different medium. If you're into oils, do that, and then if you're interested in acrylics or watercolors, see where some of those skills can kind of transfer over. Evaluate how various artists solve the same problem that you're having, and look at their differences in how they answer that. There's not always one answer only to a problem. There's a lot of different successful ways to solve the same problem, and it's really, you learn a lot more by finding different people that have solved it in different ways and kind of trying that on for size. If you're into animals, or whatever, but collect animal reference books and photos. What that means, and I've only brought a few of what I've got. Katie, can you zoom in? All right, so I just grabbed some things off my shelf. This is a wildlife book for most African, Australian. It's got birds, it's got Arctic animals, it's got stuff from all over. This wildlife photographer, Mitsuaki Iwago, is just fascinating. I love the composition and the action and the color that he gets with his stuff. These type of books can tell you more about I know, isn't that adorable? These little wallabies hugging. Can tell you a lot about creatures. It can tell you a lot about shape. It can give you little pictures to practice. So I may never draw shorebirds, but if I practice shorebirds, some shapes might apply to wallabies, or, go from there. American birds, there's fabulous, just lovely little pictures of, it gives you a good way of how they sit on something. It's nice close up. It's art, but it's, great. Little wood ducks. It's, great imagery to kind of inspire you or to practice from. I mean, just if you're into horses, you need something like that, because they've got images from, you know, helicopters. They've got side images, they've got fighting, they've got everything. Gigi, I'm thinking of you with that. The artist photo reference book of birds, all of these are copyright free from the artist, and he even is a painter. I don't necessarily, I think he's as skilled of a painter as he is a photographer, but he takes great reference photos for his paintings. That kind of shows you how he thinks about that, with all the different types of birds. Now, you know, people say, oh, that's great, I don't have a lot of time and effort to collect these. You can even look at books from the library. This book, my mom gave me for Mother's Day this last year, and I was really fascinated with why it looked really familiar, and I was paging through it and all that, and still couldn't figure it out. I thought she must have just gotten it at a garage sale, and I'd seen something similar to it before. It looks a little bit like Thomas Seaton's book or artwork, but I realized when the thing fell open, it was my grandma's. This is the first reference book I looked at as a 2, 3, 4-year-old kid, with these beautiful images. I never knew why I would take notes in my sketchbook. It was because she would sit and tell me why they did that, and how there were the little practice sketches with the real sketch, and that was okay to do that. It didn't always have to be finished artwork. So this was one of the first reference books that I looked at other artists' work and how they solved problems. So that's, you know, something that you can never start too early or too late. You can always check stuff out from the library, like that. This book is Ernest Thompson Seton's book. It looks like heck because it went through a library that the back wall fell off when they were doing construction, and all the art books at my college fell into a giant hole because they were building a basement next to it. But my boyfriend, who was a cop, they got a grappling hook and went down at 2 in the morning pulling reference books out for me because they were going to get thrown away. This is just some of the basic, and this stuff is old as the West is being settled. This guy in the 1800s and early 1900s went out and actually was drawing on site. So it's just these beautiful, find the one that I've marked.
Amy, can you try to talk a little louder for
Yes.
the YouTube?
Sorry.
For some reason, it's like,
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
it's sound like picking up sound backwards.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Like they can hear me, but they can't. You're quiet,
Okay.
so it makes no sense. So
All right. Yeah, we'll try to do that. But see, these are that's just gorgeous, where it's very basic drawings, but he's done a little bit of kind of some sepia washes, some charcoal gradations. I really started looking at this book in college and kind of how he was forming his shapes and line work and things like that, and it had a lot of effect on me. Katie, can you look at this one, because this would be better to zoom in. This guy's line work brought me from this right after college, where I liked the line work, but I wasn't very happy with it, to I found this book by this Russian artist named Victor Ambros, and this stuff is just gorgeous. And just by studying him and kind of making more thoughtful line as I worked, when you look at the after party and you see the gorilla, you can see a lot of the influence of this guy in
definitely can.
my drawings.
That's crazy.
But I mean, look how just he doesn't have to shade everything. Everything doesn't need to be finished. You can see the construction lines through it. He even makes corrections, like in here, that wasn't front of back. He pushed it back, but it's just so beautiful and gorgeous. Look at the big cats. If you've ever, this is like, you can tell he's drawing on site. That's just, he would go to some of the zoos in Russia and draw them. Gorillas, just that beautiful line work. Look at that. That's just, that underdrawing is just absolutely beautiful. And then the shading and stuff on that, just, aren't those gorgeous?
It's so cute.
It just makes me happy. There's one more that I was just like, we have to show. Look at these birds. Look at just long, beautiful flowing lines to describe, you know, and then shorter, smaller lines, and then a little bit more detail, and then the rest is just very almost expressionistic. Just looking at stuff like that is very helpful. The rest of these are just your basic reference books. There's an African wildlife, National Audubon thing, amphibians and reptiles of North Carolina, Virginia. Still too quiet?
No, we're just.
Okay. Cats and dogs of all the purebreds, butterflies and moths. So anytime I get interested in a certain subject, I want to put something into more modern art like that, I have a reference book for it. Garage sales, book sales, gifts from people. Frida, look like there's a question.
Yeah, the South Lennar Art Club asks, do you think there are advantages to using paper media versus looking for references online? And if so, how would you explain it to students?
It depends. I mean, utilize every way that you can find. What they asked was paper media versus print media, essentially, right? What are the benefits and detractors from that? The biggest thing is either which way you've got to worry about copyrights. It's one thing if you're sketching it in your sketchbook. It's another thing if you're drawing it exactly and then passing it off as your own artwork. The beauty of books or things that you've printed out, you can carry them with you. I have a couple manila folders that I print off interesting things that I find. One of the websites that I really prefer is called pixabay.com, if you guys can put that on there. That is a copyright-free website. You can use any of those images to create your own artworks. When you're looking at it, there's all sorts of different categories like photography, there's illustration, there's vectors. Always hit photography if that's, what you prefer to draw from. I think that's easier. And then type in, polar bears or flamingos or owls. There will be just a ton to work from. So that is a great website as far as, if somebody wants to commission you to do a zebra, you can go on there, find pictures of zebras to work from, then you've got that. You might not have a book that has zebras, or what you've got, obviously, you can't use and then pass off as your own. So that's where that, Frida, I think, is probably really beneficial. But if you're practicing, it doesn't matter what your source is, you're practicing, and it's okay to draw in your sketchbook. It's just when you go to resell it, that's usually the issue, okay? Does that help, Frida? Okay. Study during your downtime. Nobody likes to study. That's where this stuff is helpful. You can take it with you to doctor's office visits, appointments. You could print out a couple photos and keep them jammed in a sketchbook to carry with you. If you're too timid to draw or practice where you're out in public, get some of the books that talk about structure, get some of the books that talk about animal shape. Find really dynamic pictures that show weight shift, that show the outlines of animals. Like, remember the old bird books, the old Peterson's bird books that like your parents had when you were a kid, and you look and there's the picture of all the birds on the line, and it's the outline in black of all the birds. That's a good way to identify specific birds by their shape. Practice and study that. It doesn't matter that you're not drawing always. The more you look at something, the more it's starting to register in your subconscious, and the more that you're seeing those types of things, the more that it will help you. When you practice, sketch with very quick lines to accomplish, like that Victor Ambrose book, finding mass, finding weight distribution and balance, the expression and the attitude of the animal. Or is their body like where they're hunkered down and they're timid, or they look scared? Is it a tiger that looks like really bold and aggressive, like it's going to jump on you and pounce? Try to learn how to portray the body in where it's giving that expression through your drawing. That's kind of how you start getting better. That's how you start involving the viewer more with your animal art. Collect books from the artists that you admire. Look on websites. If you see something and you like somebody's artwork, it's okay to research them. Look at the history of their art. Look and see if you can find sources online that show their artwork from beginning to end, to current, just to see kind of how they've journeyed and where they've gone. Print off reference stuff to keep the stuff handy. If you don't have time to read about it, stick it in a folder so that you do, or, obviously flag it later so that you can come back to it, bookmark it. Usually practicing, at least for me, came on doing commissions. It's not always ideally what you want to do, but it's what you have to do, and it's still practice nonetheless. Try practicing new species that you're not used to. Kangaroos are crazy great for that because they just don't make sense at all. Also things like, what, seriously, they're like a donkey and a dog and a dinosaur had a baby, and then there it is. So other things that are crazy and wonky, all of the rat types like the emus and the ostriches, snakes. Seems like that would be easy to draw. It's not. So that's a way of breaking down to very basic form and having to learn foreshortening and things like that. Just try some different things that are normally outside of your comfort zone, because that's great practice. It helps you see when if you're only a horse artist, it helps you see that when you go back to the horses, that experience can still be applied to drawing those. When you're looking, and it's something that Will, in editing our videos for the after party, he said there was something he never thought about that I said, and I said, when you're working, look at your reference 80% of the time that you work. It's the same if you're drawing a portrait of somebody. If you're not looking at what you're drawing what you think you know. If you're drawing what you think you know, it's probably not what it really is. So try to condition yourself over and over to keep looking back at that reference over and over, keep reevaluating. How am I, have I strayed from it? Have I been starting to look at my drawing too much? Don't draw what you know, draw what you actually see. Something that I find a lot of people do that want to do animal work, that's the biggest downfall. They want to put every single little feather and every single little hair on the animal. Nothing screams wrong more than when you draw each of those and you've gotten the other stuff, like the structure of the animal, the eyes are too close together. All those things, the hair is just going to point out that something looks weird, because that's not how everybody sees. Think of a camera when you're using a 35mm camera. When you zoom in and out, you're focusing and seeing a certain part. You don't always see every little hair. With digital cameras, sometimes that makes it different. But think of viewing something on a portrait scale, thing. If you've got the iPhones, the portrait setting. That makes more sense. Let the viewer actually read that shape and kind of extrapolate the coat, extrapolate some of the feathers. You can offer nuances and suggestions, but if you try to do every one of them absolutely right, you're going to find that it then makes it look very, very wrong. So that's, I think, what people do that kind of hurts them the most with that. The form is paramount to creating successful animals and wildlife. I'm going to show this, and I think this is a good example. Katie, is this zoomed in enough where they can see this? This is just an outline. Okay, that's fine. She turned around the computer.
Sorry, I'm trying. For some reason, YouTube is like
the sound's going up and down.
On its own, but
we're sorry, guys. She's trying to fix it while we're going. She's
I have
actually
no
away from the
idea
camera to try to fix it. Nothing suggests the form more than actually getting the shape right. This is just an outline. It wasn't done with a projector. You can see the elephant's weight distribution. I'm actually seeing a reflection in the back of the phone, so that's helpful. You can see its profile. You can see the bottom of the ear. You can see tusks, the tree. Then over here, there's a little baby. You can see him walking. You can see the tail. You can see the whole demeanor. Everything in that outline is done where you know exactly what that is, even though it's just that shadowed cutout. Now, if I was trying to draw, and focusing on all the other parts, I wouldn't get this, but just those, using basic shapes, breaking it down into really basic shapes, helped me make this look very, very real, even in just that outline. If anything, this type of work, it glaringly shows the faults if you don't have it right. So sometimes it's good to just break it down into that outline, just to kind of see where you're at and kind of what you need to do from there. Working on cropping. You don't always have to have a picture where, okay, you're doing a horse and So, okay, so I need to show the whole body. Okay, so now all of a sudden I've got a background. What do I do with that? You can actually take an item and you can crop it down. You can use some of the negative space around the item to kind of make that artwork whole. This is something you actually do where you take the image itself, if you've got any sort of photo editing program, and you can actually try different crops to kind of see what's going to work the best. Is the YouTube still all over the place? You guys just look absolutely baffled. If you're playing along at home on YouTube, I'm sorry, we're trying to get it right. I know that it's frustrating.
It's not making any sense when it's going up and down for us to be able to figure out what it is.
Random.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me feel bad. I'm sorry.
We're trying, guys.
Yep, we're trying. These are just very basic photocopies, but it was just to show composition, something that's different and unique that I'm going to show you real quick. Gorilla with a flower. It was actually from a picture I took at the zoo. I used to take all my own pictures. Thank goodness there's the internet now, because that was tedious and expensive to go on trips. This was actually a cardboard box that he was eating, and no, that wasn't going to work. So put a flower in instead, tried to use some interesting kind of colors and negative space. He was eating a cardboard box. Zebra. I love to play with shadow, and I love to play with color where something's lighter, putting something darker behind it, and so where it's lighter or darker, vice versa. You can see that nice shadow in the background of the shade, and then making that shadow darker to show up under her to kind of balance that color out. I actually just went really abstract with this. These aren't the original colors. These are just photocopies of an old picture that I took of the artwork. But that shows the bird. You can see the form, but I actually took it and tried to make it more of an abstract painting with bright colors in the background. So the negative space in the painting makes kind of an interesting play on the positive space of the bird. That was too dark to see. This one is dark, but you can see that same kind of idea behind it. Negative space, positive space. The same with this little guy. Trying to balance it with a little bit of color so it doesn't look like he's just kind of hopping off the page, and using that shadow to ground him there. And this one, just kind of a play on something abstract with a shape behind him, kind of echoing some of the shapes that he was at. I love kangaroos. They're just, I don't even know how many paintings I've done of kangaroos, because I used to have them at this zoo up the road, and my son was 2.5, 3, and he would love to just go and try to push popcorn through the fence for the kangaroo. I knew the person at the zoo that owned it, so that was fine with him. But it bought me a little bit of time to take good photos to work from and do life drawings from. So anyway, so that's just kind of an idea of how you can crop something in tighter, not have to put an actual definite background behind it, where it gives a little bit of intimacy to the animal, like you're viewing it in just like a little moment, and that. All right, so books that we've got that can help you. Now, some of these are could be helpful for somebody who's intermediate or a little bit more advanced. Some of these are very basic, and I will tell you when and why, just so that you're not looking into something that might not be the best for you. The Leonardo books are some instructional books that we carry. Actually, if you're interested in these, we've got a lot in stock, but we are going to be closing them out. So you might want to get on that sooner, and they're a really good value. They are kind of the old, if you remember the Lee Ames books of the early 80s, this was how they would do it. They would kind of show you the shape, kind of how to break it down. They've got different kind of layers of how to do that. These books are kind of modeled after that, from very basic line drawings to a lot more detailed drawings. This comes out, it shows you kind of step by step how to actually make that tiger in the woods, how to kind of shade from there. It gives you just some kind of basic ideas from starting from scratch to how to layer for color or for shading. So that's the animals. It looks like it's mostly big cats in this one. This is birds. It's kind of gives you some anatomical hints for the birds, how to layer in the color, some nice kind of shading examples, kind of how to work from the beginning to the end with birds. Now this book, I hadn't seen it, and when I ordered it in, I was very excited because this guy was an illustrator for the Center of Marine Biology back in the day when this was the early 1900s. So you're figuring like before Edison and cars and indoor plumbing and fun things like that. This guy who was born in 1882 was doing these beautiful illustrations. A Frenchman named Matura Migure, and I'm probably butchering that, but that was what the pronunciation sounded like from the French guy on the pronunciation website, Frida. I'm sure it's wrong too, because you probably know French along with 97 other languages. But this guy's line work is just amazing. Look at the cats. Can you see that, Katie? I can't tell from here. Just the very,
We're pretty close.
beautiful kind of chalk and outer line works. These are pictures, I mean, and these were done a long time ago, where they've got start to finish illustrations from this guy. Just very nice line work. I mean, all these are done with toned paper, so it's got darks and it's got lights. Those give a pretty good indication of how to go from start to finish. Gosh, especially the caracals, those are gorgeous. So, I mean, just that, it's a great way to see kind of up close and personal some very beautiful line work from somebody, but also to kind of try your hand at it and see kind of step by step how it goes, and get used to practicing that. So that, the book number 36 is a great book for that. Now, several of you in the Jerry's Facebook Live group are into horses, and I've seen some great pastels coming out from a couple people. This anatomy plate for artists made me think of you guys. It looks like a book. It's actually a portfolio of plates. Now, one thing I will say, and some people don't like this anatomical stuff, when everybody talks to me about, oh, well, you're just good at drawing animals, and I'm saying I've not always been good at drawing animals, something that actually helped me more than I realized was being a veterinary technician after college for a couple years, and then actually being a veterinary surgical technician, helping with surgeries, kind of really learning anatomy up close and personal, made a big difference in how I portrayed animals. And I think that this helps any artist, just like Leonardo da Vinci. He knew a lot about anatomy because he studied anatomy firsthand, but these plates are gorgeous. They've got things like the skeletal structure underneath, so you understand kind of where the bones are and why, when you're looking at a horse a certain way, what is really inside there that's giving it that form. Even coming and going, what that looks like, musculature, so that you understand, why it makes that form that it does. This one is really nice that I just saw in here. It's got the musculature over just the skeleton, so you can actually see how that moves and kind of why. So these type of plates are incredibly invaluable for people that are doing these types of animals and kind of understanding why the form works the way it does. So, and these are illustrated by somebody who's got probably the skeleton and the flayed animal to work from. So that's a great resource for somebody who's wanting to, become even better at horses. So that's and there's actually one for the human form too on that page. So if you're into portraiture or into drawing figure, it would be a helpful little kind of thing to have. There's actually 48 plates on that, and it's on 250 gram stock paper, so it's nice, heavy, like about 120 pound paper. So slide these over here so they're out of the way. Now we've got Strathmore has come out with some learning to draw pads. This one is Learn to Draw Nature in Colored Pencil, which is great. Now, the only thing that I saw about this is there's instruction at the beginning in the book that kind of talks to you about colors used in the lesson. It's got the step-by-step lessons, but you're gonna have to either pull your paper out to work on or pull the sheets out to work on, because all the instruction is up at the front on this, but it's great instruction, especially that she shows you what pencils to use, and then all of your papers in the back. There's 12 lessons, so this comes with everything that you need other than the colored pencils and sharpener, yes.
Does that one also have the online support too? The watercolor
I
ones
believe
do.
that they do. I think
I love that.
all of these do. So this is nature. So it's got some animals, and then it's got, you know, things like shells and it look like flowers and some little bugs and butterfly and things like that. Oh yeah, there's a little fox. Oops, I just lost him. Oh, fawn. So, and I did see a fox. So it kind of gives you some kind of great, and that it's in colored pencils, fantastic, because it's helping you learn to layer color. It's Cynthia Knox, so she's a, you know, an instructor that works in colored pencil. So, and that's 300 Bristol paper, so it's great for a colored pencil. Now this one's a little more basic. This would be great for grandkids. This would be great for somebody that maybe doesn't have the drawing skills. You enjoy kind of doodling, but you know that you really need to work on some skills. Although this guy is primarily a cartoonist, same shapes apply when you're doing cartooning as when you're doing, you know, life drawing. He shows you kind of how to learn to look at the shapes that the animal is made from. First, it's just some very basic instruction for kind of how to do that, and then he's got the instruction with the paper under it. So it's right there, so you can keep referencing that. And then he's colored the little examples. But, you know, even though it's a cartoon, it's still a very, you know, good form for what it is. It's just more of a basic sketch drawing. There are 30 lessons in this book with the little sketch at the top and then the paper to work from. So it's a great way of practicing, and it's got 10 additional sheets for after that. So that's Christopher Hart is the artist that... So if pads aren't your thing and you've already got all the extra stuff, there are actually some DVDs that we've got that can help. Now, in the same vein as kind of the Christopher Hart book, if you're a Bob Ross fan, is it still going up and down with this mic? I'm so sorry, guys. There are 3 Bob Ross. Now, they're presented by Bob Ross, so it's actually not Bob Ross doing the wildlife. He's the presenter, and an artist that's named B. Cox is doing them. There is a Wildlife Get Started. Get Started with Wildlife Painting. It kind of works on techniques to paint animal features. It says it ties in techniques to paint a big cat in the final segment. Focuses on learning about kind of different animal eye types. Fur, so you kind of learn medium and long hair, hide on animals like horses and things like that, and then short, sleek hair like big cats. So it's kind of gives you basic information on how to paint animals at a very basic level. It's not, you know, high-end illustrator level, but you got to start somewhere. If you don't have that background, this would be a great place to learn. Then there is a giant panda one, so you can... That's Bob Ross with B. Cox doing the instruction. Beginning to end, a painting of a panda with a softened bamboo background. So it's easy from very beginners on. Jaguars. Start to finish painting a jaguar. Blank canvas to an animal, they say, with easy to learn techniques. Great for all skill levels. So some kind of very basic, easy ways, low pressure, I'm sure very kind and soft-spoken, you know, if it's a Bob Ross friend, I'm sure. So those are great kind of basic DVDs for that. Now, we've got some Dan Nelson beginner DVDs. One is a beginner's guide to oil pastels, and one's a beginner's guide to soft pastels. And he actually does a project from beginning to end. The Tropical Frog project has 2 other projects on it as well, with soft pastels, but it does have the frog. And then the one with the goldfish does a goldfish project in oil pastels. So it's actually medium specific. So you've got your soft pastels, or like even, I guess, hard pastels probably, and then oil pastels. Then we've got if you really are, say you've got some skill level already, and you're kind of wanting to go from there, especially if you're wanting to look into doing commissions of, say, family dogs and things like that. Teresa Brown is actually an artist that was local here. I think she still has a studio, but she doesn't have one down in Art Space anymore, but I know it's because they rotate stuff out. Exceptional animal artist. When I moved to this area, she had a studio down there, and I was very surprised and impressed by her work. This DVD is her going into learning about doing animal commissions, wanting to, if you want to learn to work from animals better, secrets for even getting animals to pose for you, and creating lifelike eyes and realistic fur. So it's a great DVD. I'm sure all of her stuff that she's involved with is great. Then we've got, this one is kind of, it's called A Painting a Day. It's very kind of, this guy just is really awesome. He does 3 really small little paintings. I don't know how better to say it. One of the paintings is of cows. There's a barn and there is a water lily, and he paints those 3 paintings within an hour's time period, I think. And it's really awesome because you can see how each of these paintings built up from nothing to a finished painting, and the cows go through this very interesting metamorphosis when I watched it, and I was like, oh, I don't like that anymore, and then it was like, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. So it was very interesting to watch and learn, and it would give you really cool insight on kind of especially how to do kind of broken light on cattle and things like that. It's $6.99 because it's just a great value for kind of even learning how to paint quicker, or paint production for maybe doing some smaller work. So, but the cows, it's pretty great information on how to paint cows. So there's that. Brushes. We're gonna have to zoom in on those. So we'll go through some brushes that can really help you with a lot of techniques. Now, most of these are water media brush specific. However, if you're getting into detail for your painting, if you're working on, even an oil painting, I just would say if you get these and you use them for oils, they need to stick with your oils. If you get them and use them for acrylics, stick with acrylics. If you do inks build up in brushes, keep them specifically for inks. Watercolor, you can use kind of any water media that doesn't have a means of gumming up the brush. All these brushes that we're going to look at all have short handles, so it's going to give you the best control for when you're doing really small, fine detail. Even you can kind of hold them in your hand with it pressed against your palm, which is nice for doing detail. And a lot of them do very specific things only. This is not like a big oil painting brush where you've got a big flat or a filbert that can kind of cover a lot of area, but turn on its side can give you kind of a finer line. So we'll look at these really quick, and then we'll kind of show how some of them work. And then if anybody sees them and wants, immediately really would like to see what that one looks like, if you guys will let me know, Frida and Amanda, just if people want to see specific stuff. Okay. No.
We're just celebrating on YouTube right now.
Oh, is it working finally?
Don't jinx it.
Sorry, guys. All right. I'm going to use the Mission Gold, the Mahalo Perfect Pan Set, just because it's lights up really easy. It's easy to see. And we're going to use some illustration board. It is Strathmore illustration board that is cold press, and I do believe it is 500, so it's cotton. But it's hot press, so I'm doing hot press so we can see a little bit tighter what the line is like with these. Okay, now first let's look at these brushes here. If we need to get I'll pull them up and look at them this way.
You can put them right there, you can see them.
Okay. All right. So this is the the try it stuff that we've done on our website. It's kind of a way to try new different products. This is the Bestie Try It pack. There is a 1/8 inch flat rake. What a rake is a brush that you can see to about here. I don't know if they can see, but I can see it's a darker orange and then it gets a lot lighter. it's because the hair is kind of half, it's almost like when you take pinking shears, I guess. Or what do you use when?
Texturizing shears.
Okay, texturizing shears in a hairdresser. About half of the hair is present from there down. So it makes it so that you can do with dry brushing some kind of interesting techniques that you can't do with a full brush that will just leave a straight stroke. And then there's a bushy round with it. A bushy round is just a wider round to the tip that kind of holds more fluid and hair with the hair in it. It's not a pointed round where it's really super fine tip point. Do we need to see these, or do we want to talk about brushes real quick first, and then I'll kind of go back through? Okay.
Because there's so many of them.
Okay, yeah. All right. This cute little adorable thing just seems kind of silly, but it's great. This is a winkle.
Or why don't you do them while you're talking through it?
Okay.
Show them how it works while talking through
Okay. All right. Well, we won't show the trike because we're going to have those in a minute. But a winkle is fantastic because, well, okay, I've got to wash the sizing out. All right. It's, okay, so it might not always work for all watercolor techniques. Can you see here, Katie? I can't tell. But you can do these nice little lines. Okay, that doesn't seem, it looks like a little bit longer spotter, which is just a little tiny touch brush for just little dabs. Think of if you're doing modeling, or you're doing small sculpture, or you're doing ceramics. Okay, maybe it's eyeliner. I don't know.
Yes, maybe, I was just thinking
Okay.
that would be great for us.
So I know where this is going to disappear to. This can get into those tight spots on 3D stuff that other things can't, or it can give you just that little bit of control. I guess that would be good for the inside of your eye. On flat work, it's really not that important. But it would be great to have for, people will call and be like, my brush is broken, it's bent. No, it's a winkle.
supposed to be like
You
that.
ordered a winkle. So
If you're working really small, it's nice too because it kind of gets your hands out of the way a little bit.
yes. All right, so that's a winkle. Now, these other brushes, let's get both of these. We're looking at the Bestie wedge and then also the Robert Simmons wedge. I wanted to see what the difference between the two. Can they see that? One is a lot pointier. This is much shorter hair. It's actually almost looks like the old-fashioned nibs for a calligraphy pen, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is longer here, but those give you a nice pull, smooth stroke, or you can use the end for detail. Okay, so I can get a really fine little detail out of that if I want, or I can get a nice kind of carved stroke for something. That would be really nice if I was doing like a zebra in watercolor, because with some practice, it would really help me kind of get, look at that, where I could get a wider stroke and then where the line loosens up, going around kind of a fat area of its haunch and then loosens up like that. That's really nice. And that's a wedge. Once in a while you will see one called a fountain brush. It's incorrect if it says that, because that's not what a fountain brush is. I'm gonna try the Robert Simmons one.
Is that similar to a dagger?
No, it's not. We'll talk about those in a minute. A dagger is different. A dagger is essentially like a giant filbert that someone's cut in half.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's very thin. That's not bushy from
Yeah,
width-wise.
Yeah.
Similar top shape, but the bottom surely is
Yeah.
better.
That's nice. With that not having as much hair, I wasn't sure that I would like it, but it actually gives some pretty nice control too. Both of those are very nice, and from never having used one before, that's pretty easy. So, now the handle is different. That's kind of a fatter handle. I don't think it's bad, but it's just for it being a smaller brush, it's a little less wieldy than that. I like that. Yeah. I like that one.
Oops, sorry guys.
No, let's here.
So you're gonna jump head on so they can see.
Yeah. Does that help?
Because it's kind of, I mean, like,
Yes.
when you look at,
It's very strange.
dagger,
It's hard to
right?
see. Yes, this is a dagger. Let me wet it because it's got sizing in it and it got kind of crinkly in.
so the shapes kind of look similar from the sides,
See, but
but the base is See, mine never gets
Yeah,
flat.
that's 3D. It's almost like a triangle, right?
It's a triangle, yeah.
Yeah, where this is flat. And it doesn't have a lot of hair from, doesn't have a lot of hair this way, right? So this is the dagger. So we're gonna, now a dagger isn't so useful because it can't hold a lot of material. So if I'm pulling it that way, it's not gonna go for very long. What it's useful for is making a longer, thinner line of just this. You turn it on its side. I mean, look at how nice, and you can get a little bit of, if you push down, a little bit more width. But if you took this and went this way, that's not going to offer you a lot.
It was pretty.
You know? So if you ever look at, it's also called a striper brush. Sometimes it's a dagger striper. Lettering brushes will have, for like people that used to do old car pinstriping, when they used to do it by hand, it'll be a tiny short handle and a really long brush with that tip, and they can use it just to pull straight across. So that gets a really nice line. And what this does is, because it's got all that hair for that pigment to go up into, that's why that line continues. If you had a pointed round, it probably wouldn't make it that far, with, because you would need it to be a pointed round to get that fine of a line, but it doesn't have the belly for the material, right? So this would be great for doing like grass, or, you know, doing, I mean, you could even do whiskers with that.
Yeah.
There is a, there's a busty one, and I got the little one because I'd never seen what the little ones look like, and I was kind of curious. Oh, no, that's a filbert rake, so that's not it. Here we go. Okay, so this is a little version of it.
It's
See, that
so
doesn't get it,
tiny.
but it isn't getting any really finer line than that did for a huge brush difference. So that's, I like the hair in this better. It's a little bit,
It holds more.
yeah. All right, so there's that. Let's see. The filbert rake. There was that rake. Okay, so this
Sorry,
it's
for the
pointed,
legend.
so that's actually filbert though. So and with these, it's easier to use them more with a dry brush, because if it's wet and loaded down, it's not going to do. That's a really light color. Let's get something darker. Okay, see how you can almost see the little hairs? It's for texturizing. I don't want to make it a lot wetter than that because it will lose our, and this is a very small. See how it's getting, this end has those little texture parts? See? Almost looks like little fingers. It's hard to see because this, I'm trying to walk a fine line between too much paint and too much moisture. See how you see the little fingers? Kind of. See the lines? Yes, no. Katie looks like she's falling asleep. Like,
I'm watching. I'm trying to hold the camera still.
Okay. All right. Then that was the filbert. So I've got a larger, just a regular rake. Let's see if we'll do that. It's much easier to see on this one because of the size. See the fingers where that color goes up to about where the hair's split.
Oh, that's much easier to see.
Yeah, that filbert's too small. I don't know why you'd really have a rake that small.
Okay, really small.
Okay,
These
so.
things for ants.
All right, you've heard it here first, folks. So see, that gives you a way to texturize. So if you're working on an animal that's got like an undercoat, that helps. If you're like trying to kind of fuzz in maybe around a face on an animal and kind of get a smooth, enough texture, but not like super brush strokey, that would kind of help give you that with the rake.
Sorry,
Oh, you're fine. I'm just looking to see what I've got under here. All right.
I'm all up in your brushes.
So here, well, you know, This
Can't
is
get close enough for him.
a script liner. Script liner is just that, a brush that's perfect for doing lettering or for signing names. Whenever people want to know, what can I sign my oil painting with? Right? I don't. Amanda, I heard Amanda audibly sigh
Yeah.
on that. Thank you for your judgment, Amanda. No, I'm teasing.
No, I'm not even good with that kind, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an easy way to get fine lines. Now, what I've never used these to sign anything. What these are perfect for, though, to me, that and some of the other liners, if you've got an animal and you're doing whiskers, look how with a flick of the wrist you can get it's nice and wide there. It tapers off far. I mean, that's a perfect brush for that.
Holds a lot of water for sure.
What kind of paints are those?
These are watercolor.
No, the Mission Gold. The
Oh,
Mission
yeah, sorry.
Gold.
What brand? Okay. I don't know. All right, so that's a script liner.
It's our favorites.
Spotter. A spotter is where you put a tiny dab of color on something. Let's do it with something really.
This is the highlight in the eyeball.
Yep, highlight in the eyeball. Obviously, you wouldn't be doing this, but where you can get just that tiny little dot.
Can't even see it.
Or you can line the eye, that tiny little kind of shadow under an eye. See the little animal eye? Just for that perfect little spot that you need. Pointillism, you could use a spotter to do pointillism with ink, right? And get some teeny tiny little sand. You could do sand. Yes, it's just supposed to be just a tiny little brush. Miniatures. Now, this is where this makes sense.
I get
If you're
even
doing
smaller.
miniatures, okay, so
Paintings for ants.
this is a deerfoot stippler. Now, what that is a round brush that, you can't see it now that I've added water, that's been cut off at the end at kind of a slight angle. It looks like Bambi's foot. You can't see it now that I've wet it down, because that was smart. It doesn't, yeah, try that. This is the FX version. See how that's got the, look, can you see this? That's kind of the version with it fluffed out a little bit. What these are great for is dry brushing in texture. Like if you're doing
Oh, I'm going to make another reference, but it's like the lip gloss things.
You use them to do kind of, like if I was doing moss.
Nice and soft.
Nice and soft. If I'm doing, if it's an animal that's got a lighter undertone and a darker overtone. I've used these on horses for dappling. If you've got a gray horse and you need to, whitish horse, and then you need to make those little dapples. If you load them up wet, they're not going to, like, see, that's wetter. That's not what you want. You want that to be.
I like the noise how it makes.
Yes. Right? Okay. So that is a deerfoot stippler. Now there is an oval stippler. It's just a very short, we don't have any of them, but it does exist, and it's just a stiffer kind of rounded oval brush that you kind of do that same kind of almost like stomping with. Think of it like a stenciling brush.
Dab, dab. Oh, yeah.
It's basically an artist's version of a stenciling brush, if that makes any sense.
Not as rough.
Yes. And the amount of pressure, like you can see, I'm going lighter there than I did with the green, is going to kind of determine what look it achieves. Now these are the FX Effects brushes. They've got a Dagger. They've got 3 of these. They call them dabbler brushes. They're stipplers. They're the deerfoot stipplers. They're just not quite as tight of an angle. These are what are called angular multi-liners. So if you pull them out, you can see it's kind of at an angle, but you can help use that to make grass and things like that. Then these are just kind of all over with that kind of style. And then these, they call them ribbon. They're what's kind of traditionally called a whale's tail. See how it looks like a whale tail? When it's wet, it can kind of come out. Let's look at one of each of these styles, just so you can kind of see. Now, these are great for more decorative painters, some of these, but then some of them, like, see, now you can see why it's a whale tail. Mermaid tail. You can load 2 colors. You can do one on one side and one on the other.
Cool.
And do it, which obviously you wouldn't be doing with your wildlife art, but that's, this is why decorative painters like it, because if you really wet that down, you can make a ribbon.
Oh, yeah.
And you pull it and just kind of, you can tell I have no decorative painting skills. How I got out of that, I don't know. So that's that style with these. You can load them. There's a lot of sizing in them. There we go. You can load these in some different colors. These you can use wet or dry, right? So if this is grass, you could go under there with one color and then kind of go out over and do the highlights for lighter colors. See how I've got some more green and a little bit of yellow kind of that are showing through. And then, you know, obviously wetter to make it really heavy, the color, or you could even kind of dry brush it to make it very faint. Almost like a sponge painting. So there's that one. And then the angular is just kind of the same thing, but I guess it gives you a little bit of a cut angle. What? The sound? It's squishy. It gives it like a taller.
It's a nice variation though. You don't have to worry about having such
No.
fake looking grass by it all being really uniform.
But I mean, that would even work for animal hair too. If you just lightly, you know, you could do it the kind of with the opposite,
Yeah, someone's that looks
Pull.
like a feather.
you know.
Cute.
So definitely, you know, a brush that you want to experiment with to get kind of a better handle on it. Stippler, just like the other one. Try to dry it out. There, now you can kind of see that effect. Then you could also kind of scrub, use it to scrub too, if you wanted, because it's got kind of a smoother, almost like a fan brush, but kind of use it to push and scrub. And then here is their Dagger brush. That's in the larger size. Get something we haven't used. So it gives a nice, decent little pull to it. Yeah, with a little practice you can make it pretty thin. So so that's the kind of the brushes from that set, and then there's obviously some different, you know, larger, smaller sizes. Now, the Creative Mark, the micro mini brushes, a couple rolled off and I can't find them. So we've got most of the set. They've got, we just did that Stippler. See, it's just their little version of a tiny little, or the tiny little spotter, right? Then they've got an angular that looks like a spotter, but there's just a tiny little angle. So you got tiny little angular brush you can either use that way or on its side to do a little thin line, almost like a dagger. Look at how little you can get those lines to be with that. So it's just an itty bitty little angular brush. Then they've got two versions of just a short round. Two versions of, let's see, look on here, spotters, rounds, the angular shader. two versions of just liners, and then they've got a script liner, and then either a script liner / rigger, which is great for doing ship rigging. That's what they call
that
riggers
makes
from.
sense.
Let me see if I can.
I don't even fit in your.
I was gonna say how I'm fitting it in the pan. I don't. Pulls up the thing pretty nice. Okay. So you can get a pretty. That's hard because it's really brush. Or the brush wasn't all the way wet because I couldn't fit it in there. You definitely want to use a tray for that.
Can you use these or the effects with oils?
Yes, but just don't. You want once it's been used with that, you don't want to go using it with other media. So definitely these can be used. I would just say keep it to the media that you've got it with, because obviously once oils have been on it, you don't want to put it in watercolor because it's going to mess with your watercolors. It may, the oils may damage your paint. You know, you'll have solvent residue and all that. So then fans are just perfect for blending things. Get back in and kind of soften that. See, soften the look of that. That's pretty much what a fan is for. So that's their micro mini set. And again, they have spotter, angular shader, 2 sizes of rounds, 2 sizes of fans, a regular shader, script liner, rake, which they call a grass comb, but it's just a little tiny rake, liner, and a filbert. And the filbert's so much of a filbert that it really doesn't look like filbert. It's just a little fatter round. Now, Silverbrush makes an ultra mini golden tackline mega set. You may want to pan across
Just
those.
pan
I'm
across 'cause
terrified to
there's a
pick them
lot.
up. It's 29 brushes, and this is what it's got. Oh, I don't have the list of what it's got. All right. I don't even know if it's basically, if you go to that page for those, you can buy the brushes individually or as, okay, so here's all the little spotters. Okay, here's all of their version of the
Just
Winkle.
talk about this one though.
They call it a teardrop.
It's a hair.
Yes. That's
I
just
just said that really
insane.
southern, didn't I?
It's a higher. It's an extra long liner. That's a liner brush. Here's their script liners. Look how nice and that's beautiful. That'd be great for signing stuff. They've got this tiny angular, a tiny filbert, and a tiny round, and they all look like that. Look at this, all these designer rounds from this size, which is a 2, all the way up to a 14. Yeah, isn't that nice?
I could letter with those.
You could. And then look at these. These are the lettering ones. Did you see these, Amanda? It's this basically a really extra long flat, which is a lettering style brush. These are beautiful right here, where you get a really nice, really long line for lettering, or just where you need kind of a longer line with fur or a shadow on the animal. And then here's a little rake where it's kind of floofed out. So it's got all of that. Basically, you would never need another little tiny detail brush again for that. Now, what I don't see in there is a dagger, if you really like the dagger, or kind of the wedges seem like a kind of a nice handy tool, but you pretty much have everything else.
Yeah.
So, so now those would be great if you do sculpture. They'd be great if you do ceramics. They'd be great if you do models. If you're a miniature painter, which miniatures are those tiny little paintings that people paint that look like a big painting, and then you see that it's 3 by 3 and you're shocked.
You're angry.
Yes. Illustrators, wildlife artists. That would work great with some acrylic gouache. So those are kind of all of our very kind of stroke specific mini brushes. Then for drawing tools, people are always wowed that this exists, but most of them don't know because it's a drafting tool. This is the Statler Erasing Shield. It's pretty. Can you zoom in, Katie? I'm just gonna set it on here so you can kind of see. What you do is find the shape around what you need to erase, and you can erase. Obviously, if this was a pencil drawing and I needed to erase right there, if it was just a tiny spot, I could just erase right there. It keeps all the rest of your drawing from being erased. If you're worried about these little pieces, you can always put Scotch tape over them to kind of plug them up, or just another piece of paper or something over it temporarily. But if you're doing really refined graphite drawings, this is perfect for pulling up just kind of little smudges and blips that you don't need on there. Seems kind of ridiculous, but it's wonderful. Now, if you don't have the patience to deal with the, that's a large microphone in your face. If you don't have the patience to deal with those little eraser shields or the time to block them off, these are 2 erasers that Tombow makes that are fantastic. These sets come with an extra eraser. I use these, I think, on the elephant drawing. This is one of the drawings that you will see on the drawing that's in succession. And that's done with graphite powder and then graphite over it. Look at that. So you can erase that tiny. It's 2.3 millimeter, I believe. Yes. And then there's a rectangular one, so it's even narrower through the one section. This would have helped to pull these out, but the packaging is so pretty, I didn't want to. So you've got you can either do it wider or you can do it narrower. Yes, and then they come with these little eraser blanks that you've got 2 of each of them that you can put in there to refill it, and then there's cell refills. So it gives you a way of not having to use a big giant eraser, go back and redraw spots that your large eraser took off. Then the other thing that we've found invaluable around here, as stupid as it seems, is this little Faber-Castell kneaded eraser, because not everybody enjoys a kneaded eraser because they end up in your wash, because for some reason you thought, I'll just put that in my pocket so it doesn't fall down and get dirty. But then it gets pocket lint, and then it gets cemented into your pocket. You laugh like, have you never done that, Frida? Seriously? Oh, Frida's never done that.
You're the only person who's
Katie?
ever told me that they've done that.
Katie, have you done that?
I haven't personally, but I pull things out of the washing machine
Okay.
pockets all the time.
But look,
Mine gets stuck in the
box.
bottom of my purse.
Well, it keeps them from getting dusty. It keeps them from picking up stuff off the table. Keeps you from dropping it on the floor or, you know, whatever. But that is perfect. It can go in your purse, your pocket, whatever. Just a handy thing, because kneaded erasers are gross. All right. So are there any questions?
The effects brushes.
Yes.
What kind of bristles are they?
They are golden Taklon. All these brushes that we've looked at right here are all golden Taklon, which means they're synthetic. Now, with most of these, now I think that these are Taklon, or a synthetic, but they're not a golden, like a golden Taklon. They may be like a sable type of synthetic. They remind me of the sapphire brushes that they make, the Robert Simmons ones. Golden Taklon, with all of these, they're done in what's called multi-filaments, which means there's different diameters of filament in it. So there's super thin, there's a little thicker, and then there's a little fatter. What that is going to do is make it more like natural hair, because hair in a brush is different thicknesses depending on where if it's an animal hair brush where they got it from the animal. Even if it's from the tail, it's not all going to be the exact same. So this makes it so the brush performs more like a regular brush, plus with it being synthetic, it offers the ability to kind of wick up a little bit more water, because it creates kind of like the negative space around the bristles so that it can do that. So that's a really good thing. So all of these are designed in that manner. Are there other questions? No? Okay.
Some you've been answering as you've gone.
Okay, well, good. The after party. The after party, we're going over the following. There is an ink drawing with micron pens. There is a charcoal drawing. There is a drawing with the Jerry's Jumbo Jet pencils, which are an oil impregnated pencil that's of different colors that are, you know, your black, your white, your earth tones. There is the graphite drawing, which is the elephant. So it's graphite powder put down first, then it's drawn on top of with graphite pencils, and an eraser is used to pull out the negative space. So the paper is basically toned with the graphite powder, and then you're using negative and positive, addition, subtraction to do that work. And then the last one is the cow. Woo-hoo-hoo, and I just about lost the flamingo. We'll show the cow. Now the body's not quite finished. We focused on the head, and I was going to finish it last night and realized I did not have a table that was high enough for my new Great Dane to not put her face on, and she kept going to the water bowl behind where I was working and coming over to look at it and dropping slobber all over my see the beaded color chart, Katie, that she did. So this is Amber Rose. That's Tina's little baby. And we go over kind of how to go from here to there. So, and the one item that I just realized I forgot, I could not remember what item it was that I forgot to put on that one that I used, and it was the Turner masking fluid, and I'll go add that before I put it onto the thing. But I think I talk about it on there because I'm surprised. It picked up, Katie. Remember, that's been on there for a month at least. Picked up like a dream. Never seen that happen with masking fluid. It's usually if you don't take it off within 24 hours, it's a nightmare. Came right up, didn't scrape the paper. This paper is beautiful and pristine like before I put it down. It was amazing. Surprised the heck out of me. Now, I'm not a watercolor artist, so, but I have used lots of masking fluid and I hate it. So maybe that's why I've not done a lot of watercolor, because it just seems like it never goes right.
That one was surprisingly.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and this is done, the cow is done with the same set that we've been using. Just, I like it, and it's easy to use the colors, and, all of that with not a lot of natural tones made the cow. So, so that is the watercolor that you will see at the end. If you were part of our Jerry's Live group, when I finish this, I will put it up. And I should have it finished by the end of this weekend at the absolute latest, because I want to use it for something. So, so I will put that up in the group so they can see that. Next week, hallelujah, it's the 4th of July week, and we're actually going to take a week off. And I know that you people with YouTube are just like, I just joined up. Don't worry, we're going to do something special for you guys next week. We will not be here live, but we will be here in spirit, right, Katie?
Mm-hmm.
We're actually
All of us.
You will get to see Amanda and Frida. Amanda is not happy about it. In all their natural glory as a person, rather than just imagining who they are. We're doing a portrait head drawing of each person that works with the show with our cast. We're doing Katie, and we're doing Amanda and Frida, and we're doing Mikey G, who does the after parties with us, and we're doing Will, because everybody loves Will. So how can you not do Will? So, so anyway, so join us for that. That will go live on our YouTube channel at 5:30 Eastern Central Time, just like normal, Katie? So 5:30 Eastern Time, that'll pop up. If you don't belong to our YouTube channel, go ahead and go to that this week. Make sure that they sign up for the alerts. So then, do they like the channel? What do they do to subscribe to the channel? Then you'll get the alert when that goes up, so you'll be able to watch it. So then you won't miss out, because it should be a good time. You'll get to see everybody, and each of those artworks are sped up so that you see them from start to finish. And Katie, your charcoal.
I'm charcoal.
Amanda's watercolor sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Frida is oil pastels. Will is soft pastels. And Mikey is oil pastels. Or not oil pastels, oil painting. So you'll get to see all of that. So anyway, and then watch the after party, where you can see all these artworks that I've done, and I will explain how I'm doing them as I'm going along. Okay? And have a great holiday weekend next week. Be safe. Enjoy your friends and family, and the 4th. Woohoo. And we will see you the following week live. Thanks. Bye.